Hello and welcome. In this video we are going to take a quick look at 7-zip. So let's load up Paint because we need to create some files to go ahead and zip. So let's start off with a black image, save that on the desktop as 1.bmp. Then we'll go for red. Let's save that on the desktop as 2. Let's go ahead and create a yellow image and let's save that on the desktop too, and we'll save that as 3.bmp. And just to make it interesting, I'm going to copy those files and paste them. So we've actually got 6 BMP bitmapped graphics, photos, images. Let's have a look at what sort of size they're taking up on the disk. 11.7 megabytes. So what I'm going to do is I will put a link in the description to 7-zip, but if you go ahead and do a search with .go, you'll see here is the link to download 7-zip. So quite easy and straightforward. Likewise, if you're using Google, same difference. Do a search for 7-zip. Obviously agree the terms and conditions, and it's the top link. So fairly straightforward to find it online using a search engine, but of course I will put a link to this page anyway in the description. But of course I've already got it installed, so let's have a look how to use it. So select the files that you want to zip up and then right click, and it should be actually added here, as you can see, to the context menu, the context sensitive menu. So select the files, right click, and then go to 7-zip. Now at this point you can literally just say add to desktop.7-zip, and we can go ahead and just click on that, and it will very quickly add a nice little 7-zip file on the desktop. And if we double click that, as you can probably imagine, it'll open in 7-zip. We can double click on the images to view them, you know, the same sort of thing that a Windows compressed folder will work, a zip file, so it works in the same way. Let's go ahead and delete all of the source images. Let's get rid of those. Let's right click on 7-zip and we should be able to, let's have a look. Well, I was actually expecting an extract button, but there isn't. But if you double click on it, you can literally select all of them and say extract to the desktop. And as you can see, we've got all of our files back. So yeah, fairly straightforward, as you can see. Now, there's a couple of different things that we can do when we are creating a 7-zip file. So let's delete that one. We're going to create a new one, emptied recycle bin. So if we select these files, right click and go to 7-zip, if we go to compress, let's have a look, add to an archive, here we go. This is how we get the options. And what we can actually do here is we can add some encryption. So we can add a password here and we can choose the encryption method. In this instance, it just looks as though AES 256-bit encryption is selectable, but that's absolutely fine. I mean, you wouldn't really need any more than that. I'm literally just going to enter the password of 12345, which is of course a terrible password. Don't use this. 12345, and I'm going to select OK. Now what's happened here is we have a 7-zip file which has been encrypted, number 1, and number 2, it has a password associated with it. So let's get rid of those files. Let's double click on 7-zip. Now we can see the files, but if we try to open one of them, we can't view it because we have to enter the password. So let's enter the wrong password, 123, and as you can see, we get some error messages here, so we can't actually view the file. Let's try again, but this time let's enter the correct password, 12345, and as you can probably guess, we can go ahead and view the image. Likewise, let's select all of them and say extract extract to the desktop. Now obviously because we'd entered our password, it allowed us to do that right off the bat. Let's delete them, let's open the archive again, select them all, extract. And as I suspected, we've got to enter the password again. So there you go, hopefully that was quite useful. A quick demonstration of how to use 7-zip. Now what I would say is 7-zip is very similar to WinZip and a Windows compressed zip file or folder. So for example, if we select these files, right click, we can actually say send to a compressed zipped folder, and as you can see, let's just put in my zip. Actually, I'll put my Windows zip and click enter, and a Windows compressed folder works in a similar way. I've got another video explaining how to use these. It's quite simple though, works in a very similar way. I'll put a link in the description for that video too. But what I want to do is I actually want to compare the file sizes. So let's delete that. So if we have a look at this file, this is currently taking up 20 kilobytes. So a huge decrease in size from the original source files. But this is a Windows zip folder. So we've got 20 kilobytes in size. Let's have a look at the 7-zip. Now I expect this to be slightly smaller, but let's have a look. Wow, that is incredible. 4 kilobytes. So we've got 4 kilobytes for the 7-zip file, and we've got 20 kilobytes for the Windows zip file. Now you can actually use 7-zip to create .zip folders as well. Let me show you how to do that. I'm just going to select these files from the Windows zipped folder because it was easier, because I didn't have to use a password, because obviously this one requires a password. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these source files again. I'm going to right click them. I'm going to open them in 7-zip and I'm going to say add to archive. But this time, instead of using an archive format, you can see here, of 7-zip, I'm going to use a zip file. And obviously what you'll probably notice too here is that we have a compression level. So we've got, you know, fastest or maximum, ultra, different levels of compression. So you could probably go ahead and experiment with those. But let's just go ahead and create a desktop.zip file. I'm going to actually prefix that with 7-zip, just so we know which one is the 7-zip one and which one is the Windows one. Oh, it's down here, sorry. There we go. So as you can see, they've got the same icon. But this one was created using 7-zip and this one was created using Windows. Let's compare the file size. So the Windows one is 20 kilobytes, and what is the 7-zip one? 24 kilobytes. Wow, so it's actually bigger. So as you can see, 7-zip actually has some pretty impressive compression algorithms when you're using the .7-zip file. However, if we go ahead and compress this again using 7-zip, let's go to 7-zip, add to archive. Let's again use a zip file, but let's go ahead and use the ultra compression. So what this will mean is obviously it'll compress the files more, or attempt to. Some files will compress more than others, but actually what it'll also mean is it'll take longer to compress, but likewise also when you open the file it can potentially take longer too. Obviously these are very small images, so it's not likely to make a huge difference. But it's just worth remembering that if you add more compression, you're going to add more time that it takes to open the file and initially compress that file. So let's use Ultra, and here we've got the 7-zip zipped folder. Let me prefix it again for clarity to 7-zip.desktop.zip, and let's see what the difference is. So let's have a quick look. The Windows one was 20 kilobytes. Now I expect this one to be slightly smaller. Let's have a look. Wow, 24 kilobytes. It didn't actually make much difference there in this particular instance. I'm quite surprised about that. However, if you're using 7-zip, generally speaking, you would want to use the .7-zip file format. The only time you'd really want to use a .zip file is, for example, if you were emailing this particular zip to somebody who doesn't have 7-zip installed, in which case you could probably go ahead and do a .zip file. And it's also worth noting, let me delete that, we right click, 7-zip, add to archive. We can still use a zip file format and use encryption. Do you see that? And actually what I've noticed is because we've changed the archive format, we've actually got different encryption methods, which is interesting. However, I would still go for AES 256-bit encryption, and if I was to use a password on this 12345, great password, not, it'll work in exactly the same way. If we try to open this, what's interesting is that Windows, let me see, yeah, so Windows can't deal with the password. So even though it's a .zip file, because we went ahead and used a password and encryption, what you'll have to do, as you can probably guess, is you're going to have to open it with 7-zip. There we go, open archive. And then of course it works in exactly the same way. You enter your password and you can extract the files. So I think that probably covers everything. I would say that if you do want to email some files securely, from what I've seen in the industry, most people tend to use either a secure FTP site, or they will actually just go ahead and use a 7-zip archive with encryption and a strong password. So always remember to use a strong password. And just as a very quick bonus tip, actually, I'm going to throw this out there, a really quick bonus tip. If you're not particularly good at creating strong passwords, what I would recommend, well, number one obviously is to use a password manager, but I'm not going to digress. I just want to show you something. If you do a search for LastPass and then type in password generator, as you can see, it pops up in the autocomplete at the bottom. We click on this link here, and you know what, I'm going to go ahead, I will throw this link in the description too, and you can actually go ahead and create a nice long password as long as you want. Let's say 20 characters long. You can have uppercase, lowercase, numbers and symbols, and you can click this little button here to generate new passwords. And if you want to copy it, you just click on this button here. And here it's asking you if you would like to sign up for LastPass, which I can certainly recommend. It's a great password manager. Now, if we load up Notepad, let's just paste it in. As you can see, it actually pasted the password in. So if you want to use a password to send these files securely, I would definitely recommend using a very strong password like this. Obviously, my password of 12345 was purely for this demonstration. And with that said, I think that probably wraps this video up. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, go ahead and like the video for me and of course the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see videos like this in the future, absolutely consider subscribing. And until next time, take care.